It's got horns. It's demonic. I was agog, I tell you. Hello and welcome to Grumpy Old Crone with me, Annie, where I'm going to be talking about things that don't matter very much in the witchcraft and pagan communities, and maybe something that does matter just a little bit. So it's all been a bit exciting here. We've just recovered from Storm Claudia, which was a little bit more extreme than maybe some of us, i.e. me, was expecting, but you know, onwards and upwards. Oh, and I need to remember to say, if you like this content, I do try to post every single week, then do please like, comment and subscribe. So anyway, let's get on, first of all, to existing whilst witchy. I am always very amused when someone approaches me to try and get me to advertise or sell their own particular version of snake oil. And the language is always the same as all the other previous snake oil salesmen. They say that they like my brand, which it never fails to make me laugh because I don't actually have a brand. Anyone who's been with me since the beginning of this channel, I know what, about 18 months or so, will understand that I never had a vision for this. I just genuinely like chatting about things that matter to me. I came back to witchcraft and paganism in 2017 after a very long time in the desert of Christianity, which always felt like a really badly fitting pair of shoes, rubbing in all the wrong places, giving me blisters, making me unable to run or even walk, and eventually, had I not walked away when I did, probably deformed me beyond my ability to fix. So coming back to my real faith and my real practice has felt in a very real way like coming home for me. So this channel, is it a very calculated way to make vast amounts of money and get famous? No, of course it isn't. I have an actual day job that I love and I absolutely have zero desire to leave it. I can promise you that this channel is about one thing and one thing only, the fact that I love witchcraft and paganism and I love to talk about it. And by you lovely cronies listening to me, it saves everyone I love in day-to-day life from having to suffer through my endless whinging about people blowing cinnamon through their doors and me repeatedly reading out bits of books that I love to them. Well, I should say that you are mostly saving them from that because I do still do it quite a lot, as Mr. Grumpy Old Crone will testify. He's a wonderful and tolerant man, and that's all I can really say about that. But my point is, nothing on this channel has been carefully considered and thought out, and I don't think I'd really even know how to brand myself unless you count that time that I binged Yellowstone and watched hours and hours of actors branding cattle and occasionally each other. It was a strange show, that. I suspect it made much more sense to people in the US. I mostly just watched it to marvel at Kelly Riley's American accent. Did you know she's from London? Yeah, right? Amazing accent work. Anyway, of course, shots of the landscape, gorgeous, but a digression. So, yes, I don't understand the branding thing, but if I was going to have anything to be my brand, then I think I'd choose honesty. I've been told many times in my life that I am, in fact, possibly the world's worst liar. I'd be totally shit at poker. I'm also one of those people who gets incredibly worried in case anybody thinks I'm looking at their PIN while they put in a machine in front of me. And I have been known to run back to the supermarket to pay for a bottle of garlic granules, 64p, that fell into the carrier bag and didn't get scanned when I paid for the grocery shop. I will note that I'd driven all the way home, unpacked the groceries, spotted the granules, and then drove all the way back, probably spending more in diesel to pay for those garlic granules than they cost. I doubt that the annual turnover of Lidl, £11.7 billion, if you're interested, I looked it up, would have been wildly impacted by my 64p. But here we are, and yes, the honesty thing really matters a lot to me. So when I find someone else being not only a little bit less than honest, but also being deeply unpleasant and taking advantage of people as well as ripping them off, well, it grates. Which is exactly how I felt when I saw this case that I'm going to talk about coming up on my socials. Normally, I'll just click past things complaining about other individuals because it's just the nature of the medium, isn't it? I mean, the comments section of some sites are like cesspools, and I've no idea how public figures deal with it. Everybody has an opinion, don't they? I mean, women in the public eye, they're either too fat or too thin or too fake or too natural, or they say too much, or they take other people's money for crystals, fail to send their goods and then call them deeply offensive slurs and take selfies of themselves flipping the bird to their angry, upset customers. Oh, hang on a minute. Maybe that last one isn't a general issue for everyone, but quite specific to a particular individual whose name might just happen to be Ruby Ann Hollingsworth. Now, I first came across her name in a pagan trading group, which I feel I should say from the outset is a group where pagans who are traders can advertise their products, not a group to trade pagans like Pokemon. Nobody try to put a heathen in a Pokeball. They will get angry and they often own axes. 1 out of 10, not recommended. But as I said, I came across this name there. Now, I'm not really seriously into crystals in a metaphysical way. I admire them as beautiful pieces of geology and jewellery, and I own quite a few, but I'm not going to claim any great knowledge. My daughter and I tend to go off to any nearby rock and gem shows and buy things there. But I know not everybody has the luxury of living near to that sort of a place where they can buy things in person. So if you love crystals or you use crystals in your practice, buying online can often be your only option. And that is where people like this individual step in. Now, please don't think I'm being mean to one individual because I had a bad day. The phrase that always grabs my attention is, oh, her. Yes, I had a run-in with her. And when you get several of these comments, one after the other, then, well, it's easier to get curious and go prodding, and yes, that's what I did. And I got angrier and angrier. And then I might have uttered the fatal words, she wants to be careful, she does. Because some of us have YouTube channels, and by some of us, I meant me. It's me. And lo, the rabbit hole was opened, and down I jumped. I'm going to try to stick to the facts here, but I will state up front that I don't personally think buying anything from this individual is a good idea. This opinion is based on emails, Facebook messages and texts that I have received from multiple people who've had extremely poor outcomes from their dealings with her. Now, before I dive into this, I will say that I think this situation highlights the fact that not everybody who operates within spiritual business spheres is ethical or even pleasant. Some people will absolutely see spiritual people as simply easy to take advantage of. And because many of us are genuine people who believe in treating the others the same way that we would like to be treated ourselves, well, it can all get a bit messy, can't it? So there are some genuine takeaway lessons from this sad situation. The facts of the matter, as multiple screenshots and personal testimony have shown, are these. 1. Ruby Ann Hollingsworth operates under various names. Ruby Ann Hollingsworth, Ruby Hollingsworth, Mystery Jewels and Luminous Jewels are the main ones that we found. As complaints are made about her to various site admins, she changes her business and operating names. I don't doubt that she's going to continue to do this. 2. She asks people to pay via PayPal and then asks them to pay friends and family. If you aren't aware, the friends and family option is cheaper for the person receiving the payment because it doesn't take out that tiny percentage for the buyer protection scheme. So the person that you are buying gets slightly more money. I think some more like 3%, something like that. But you get absolutely no consumer protection at all. This is, at the end of the day, a really bad deal. You should only ever use friends and family payments if the person is actually, shock horror, your personally trusted friend or a member of your family. Basically, somebody whose door you can go and knock on and ask where your money is. So if something goes wrong with your transaction, you have no one to complain to. If you paid using business rates, you can open a case at PayPal and get your money back. And the person that tricked you, they lose the money and they get a black mark from PayPal. 3. She doesn't put sufficient postage on her parcels, leading to the post office demanding more money on delivery plus administration fees when the postman actually tries to, give you your parcel. 4. I love this one. Her proof of postage is a video of her sticking an envelope into a postbox, which, as anyone who has ever posted a parcel in the UK will tell you, is not how one gets the appropriate amount of postage and protection on a parcel. You need to go into the office, get the parcel weighed and measured, request the delivery service that you want, pay the fee, and then get a proof of posting receipt printed on actual paper. Actual paper. 5. People being informed that their crystal broke upon packing and asking whether they want unspecified goods to the value of that item that was broken or money back. And if the customer specifies goods, what they then get doesn't seem to have any monetary relevance to what they paid for. 6. Photobombing people with endless messages and photographs trying to badger them into buying things from her, even when they weren't interested at all, and then insulting them for wasting her time when they hadn't actually requested anything at all. And 7, and possibly the most egregious thing of all, is that when anyone complains or even politely asks a question, they get the most appalling language and obscene treatment. I mean, just look at some of this stuff.
Police will be contacted. You sad low-life woman. Open a case and see what happens, I tell you now. You stupid spastic. You low-life little misfit. Close the case now and get you a package. I've not done one thing wrong. Close the case or I will contact the police. Lovely. See you next Tuesday. I will be contacting the police that you do have my crystals and you're a scammer. And maybe don't be a skint bastard not being able to pay off £3.50. I will be contact you as you have my crystals. Hope your dog dies too, you sad, sad woman.
I mean, you're charming, right? And it gets better.
You can sit on my finger. You're a disloyal customer. Go ahead and screenshot this and put it in the comments. And, okay lol, they didn't refuse to play friends and family, so they're lying. But you shouldn't be getting involved. It's nothing to do with
you. I should say this was an admin, somebody who was administrating a site where she was ripping people off, so they had every right to be involved.
It's between me and the buyer, so I'd appreciate it if you got naught to do with the stupid group admin.
Well, I kind of think it does. You know, the group admin, it's their group, it's their baby. People are getting ripped off there. There's loads more like this, and honestly, I think that's about as much as I can deal with right now. People who've tried to join her private buying group report that she is unwilling to give price lists for things, and they suspect that she's simply making prices up based on what she thinks you can afford. Please do bear in mind that there is no proof for that allegation. It is based on what customers suspect. But as she is also apparently now asking for payment via bank transfer, which also has no buyer's protection at all, and is no longer going through PayPal, there is a whole raft of potential things that may well have gone on. Interestingly, when the admin of a group who had questioned the ethics of her behaviour before, then warned people in her own private group about Ruby Ann's name changes and continued difficult behaviour, she received a really rather unpleasant message from Ruby Ann's boyfriend stating that anyone saying the crystals were damaged was lying, which is interesting because, as far as I have been made aware, nobody was saying this. This was literally the last thing that anyone was complaining about. The previous 6-7 points were the ones that were making potential customers very, very twitchy. So why was he saying this? And more importantly, why was her boyfriend getting involved? If this is a genuine business, why does she generally not just, be polite to people? I mean, I'm very bewildered by anyone who imagines that pestering people into buying things, locking them out of consumer protection, causing them to pay repeated and inflated insufficient postage and administration fees, not having proper paper trails, and then being incredibly rude by effing and jeffing at them and posting them pictures of rude gestures might actually think that this is how one conducts a genuine spiritual business. Really? Ruby Ann, Mysterious Jewels, Luminous Jewels, whatever the hell your trading name is today? Do you honestly think this is the way to do things? Because I'm here to say it's really not. I have been self-employed for quite a long time. I'm not going to make a point of my decrepitude, but let's just say that I've been self-employed for quite a long time. And in those years, well, decades really, I have learned that if you want people to continue to use your business, you need to offer something they value, do it better than the next person, charge a reasonable price, and just be bloody well pleasant to them. People do not come back to do business with people who insult, degrade and demean them. And I would say that not using someone who has been proved to act in this way is the very first thing that should happen. I would say that if you have been treated poorly and have lost money, then talking to trading standards would also be a very good thing to do. Now, I haven't had the bad luck to use this individual for my crystal purchasing, but I would say that if you choose to buy crystals, or well, anything, on a social media platform, really do your due diligence. Look at the person's reviews. Look at their selling sites and social media presence across as many platforms as you can. Only ever pay with some kind of consumer protection. PayPal is good. Credit card is excellent. Never ever pay with PayPal friends and family if you're not actually the vendor's close friend or family member. And never pay with a bank transfer if you're not 100% sure of the vendor. Because Ruby Ann Hollingsworth is, without a doubt, not a very nice person and not a good person to buy crystals from. If you want to buy crystals, and who wouldn't, because they're very nice things to own, then buy them from someone you can trust. And I don't think that this woman is someone to be trusted. Right, from there, let's move on to today's meat and 2 potatoes. And my cup of tea. So, I've pivoted on this subject because this came up on a whole load of different news feeds yesterday, and I really felt I'd be remiss if I didn't kind of cover it. So, as anyone who has watched this channel knows, I am a lefty pinko commie scumbag who believes in terrible civilization destroying things like fair elections, feeding hungry people, not taking a weird interest in the genitals of people who you don't want to have a relationship, and freedom of religion. Terrible. I know. Commenters really do love to tell me that I and others like me will be responsible for the downfall of humanity. Oh dear, what a pity. Never mind. However, my extremist views about how life would be so much nicer if we just treated everybody as we'd like to be treated ourselves does mean that I get a wee bit of echo chamber in my news reading choices sometimes. Means I tend to read The Guardian more often than the Daily Mail, shall we just say. And this morning, an absolute humdinger of a story hit the religion section of The Guardian. I'll put a link to the story in the show notes here, but a quick Cliff Notes version is this. A tourist from Northumberland was visiting London with her husband recently. They had bought tickets for a tour around Westminster Abbey. Upon going in, she was asked to remove her sweatshirt. Why was she asked to remove her sweatshirt, Annie? You may very well ask. Was it because it had naked men and women on it? No, it was not. Was it because it had the word "fuck Jesus" on it? No, it was not. Was it because it had an illustration from a 1908 children's book on it? Yes, gold star. That was exactly the reason that the security staff demanded she covered up her jumper. It had a picture from the chapter in The Wind in the Willows, in which Otter's son, Portly Otter, gets lost and all the animals stage a big hunt for him whilst being very worried about him being safe. Portly is eventually found safe as safe can be in the care of the great god Pan, who is intimated to be the god of the animals. My interpretation there, others are available. I genuinely don't know what Kenneth Grahame thought. But this picture of the kindly god Pan looking after the innocent and bewildered baby otter was chosen as the front cover of the first edition, and very beautiful it is too. I'll be honest here and say that this chapter of the Piper, that it's called The Piper at the Gates of Dawn, it's always made me cry a little bit. Graham's prose is gorgeous, the imagery is perfect, and it's just really deeply moving. Now, one of my favourite fanzines, Hellebore, chose this illustration to feature on their merchandise sweatshirt, which is what our doughty Northumberland tourist was wearing. It was a picture of the god Pan looking after some little animals with the words Hellebore above it, the title of the fanzine, check it out, I love it, and A Summoning of Ancient Terrors, the fanzine subtitle below the picture. And the reason that the tourist was asked to get undressed? Because the security guard thought it looked demonic. When the person in question pointed out quite correctly that it was an image from folklore, and folklore is very well represented within the Abbey itself, he said, and I quote, "It's got horns, it's demonic." I was agog, I tell you, at this point. Does that mean that everything with horns is demonic? Cows, rhinos, teeny little deer, baby pygmy goats, majestic herds of antelopes sweeping across the plains, buffalo, Satan. Did I just somehow miss the section of the Bible where it outlines the fact that bony extrusions from the skull condemn the animal to being a subject of satanic worship? Can you imagine the evil that would come from worshipping this little darling? Back to the queue to get into Westminster Abbey and this poor woman's encounter with a fundamentalist security guard who has no knowledge of popular children's literature. There is, let's be honest, nothing quite so terrifying to the average English person as being the one who is holding up a queue. The people behind her were likely to be breathing in a passive-aggressive way and tapping their feet, which is akin to a nuclear explosion in England, anyone will tell you. So the poor lady removed her sweatshirt and tied it around her waist so nobody could see it. Presumably she got quite cold whilst doing this too, because she'd obviously worn the jumper because it was a bit nippy. She was going to be walking around a church for an hour or so, and historic English churches are not well known for their heat-generating and warmth-retaining properties. And then she did her tour of Westminster Abbey, pointing out all the nods to popular folklore as she went, which I kind of love for her. Oh look, a dragon, it has horns. Goodness, I'm jolly glad that isn't demonic. Or maybe, what a splendid portrayal of a green man who is a popular folkloric figure often assumed to represent a figure with pagan overtones. I mean, she didn't say all that. She should have done. Because personally, I would have been so tremendously passive-aggressive that I would have been almost impossible to ignore to anybody within that abbey. I'd probably have taken photographs of it all and gone back to educate the idiotic security person as well. And I would, as she has admirably done, gone to the press with it because it's a fabulous story. A picture from a story about how a lost baby otter is now threatening the very function of the Church of England. Shock! Horror! But listen to the flag-waving far-right overly inflated pink blokes in too tight t-shirts here shouting, "You have to blend into English culture to be allowed to stay here." And then try to square that with the English person wearing a picture from one of the most quintessentially English books ever written, told she is offensive. They want our money to keep their churches going, but even the presence of a children's book illustration featuring horns is too much, and they're worrying everybody's going to fall over clutching their pearls. Now, I am all for being respectful in places of worship. You know, take off your shoes, cover your head, wear the special underwear, whatever is required of you by your places of worship. That's fine. But if you are charging people to come in, then you are, I think, straddling a fine line. Personally, I think people's choice of t-shirt shouldn't be judged as part of a commercial transaction. But as mentioned, I'm a pinko lefty commie snowflake left-wing scumbag. So what do I know? Right, believe it or not, this is actually the perfect segue into a positive bit that I have wanted to do for a bit but been a little bit worried about. So, here comes the positive bit. Here comes the positive bit. Once I've said this, I can't take it back. It's like letting a genie out of a bottle. So, here goes. For quite a while now, people have been noticing that I occasionally wear a grumpy old crone sweatshirt. I've got a couple that I made up for myself because they made me laugh, and in today's world, a piece of clothing that makes you smile is a good thing. Well, I think so anyway. I've also got a mug. Not that one, that's my hexalotl mug. But I do also have a mug, which I designed with some swearing on it. I love it. A couple of friends have asked me if they could have sweatshirts and grumpy old crone mugs with swearing, and I've done them, literally 2. One was my friend Valerie, and the other one was my adopted mom, Brenda, in Indiana. Hi, Mom! I played around with designing a little website because other people have also asked about potentially buying leatherwork from Mr. Grumpy Old Crone and woodwork from my son Jared, who, I should take this moment to digress and say, is recovering from a road traffic accident that required surgery. If you've contacted him and he hasn't responded, he isn't ignoring you. He's just on crutches for quite a while whilst all his new metalwork settles in. He still needs to get his new workshop built and set up, and that can't happen until he's fighting fit again. Sorry. And yes, it happened a fortnight after he got married. I haven't hexed the person who caused the accident, but I'm not ruling it out. Anyway, back to where I was. So, I did have a play with a website. One lovely crony, who will remain nameless but she knows who she is, found that website and ordered a mug. She got a gold star for detective work. I did the mug. She sent me a lovely picture of herself drinking from it. And at this point, just as I was getting hopeful, Europe then decided that the only way that people in UK, due to Brexit, could sell things to Europe, due to Brexit, was to have somebody responsible in the EU, due to Brexit, for which the absolute minimum charge was going to be £1,400 a year, which is quite a lot when all you want to do is send a dozen mugs with some swearing on it to someone. So I gave up on the idea of selling to Europe and thought, well, okay, maybe it'll still be okay if I send things to the US. And then, well, then the Cheeto-in-chief of the US started to mess around with tariffs, and literally nobody outside the US could figure out how it worked because he just said, yeah, tariffs, and that was all the detail anyone had. Here in the UK, nobody could send parcels to the US because our post office didn't know how to collect the tariffs. The suppliers couldn't figure out how to charge the customers. None of the computer systems worked, and it was all just like a huge mess. Because I had been planning on doing print-on-demand sweatshirts like the one I did for me, I doubly didn't know what was happening because I didn't know where the shirts would be sourced, printed and supplied. It can vary between continents. So I had no idea how to manage the tariffs. It was, frankly, a huge pile of festering poo. I abandoned the idea and I sulked a bit. Well, actually, I sulked quite a lot. But even when the tariff thing got sorted out, it made the sweatshirts prohibitively expensive. Nobody's going to want to buy those, I thought. And then, Then, last week, Mr. Grumpy Old Crone and I had dinner with some lovely friends, Bethan and Tom. Bethan is an artist, both tattoo and 2D fine art lino prints on a witchy medieval woodcut theme. Bethan. Tom is a writer, professional dungeon master, and a perfect mix of both wildly imaginative and wildly practical. We love them to bits and we really enjoy spending time together whenever possible. So back when I was starting to think about merch, I contacted Bethan to do a redesign and redraw of one of my favourite medieval woodcuts to use as a logo. I got a message over FB Messenger saying, "Would you like one of the dancing figures to be redrawn as you in your witchy dress?" Well, yes, I would. So that's what I got. And I did a whole redesign on the sweatshirt and made it way cooler. And accidentally way more expensive because, it just looks really good now. But the print on demand costs were getting ridiculous. I may have just made my own product unaffordable. And we were all chatting about this over dinner. And cue Bethan saying, "I could do small print runs in the tattoo studio if you like. I couldn't do a huge amount at a time, but might that work?" So basically, did I want to do small hand-printed runs of sweatshirts done by the person who had designed the logo, in the local studio where my daughter sees us ideals, and I get our tattoos done? Yes, I did. And when I asked another friend, it seems like Grumpy Old Crone mugs might be possible in the same vein as well because they have the whole setup. Now, as I was having these conversations, another crony, completely coincidentally, asked whether I knew about the fake merchandise that was being sold underneath my channel adverts. No, I didn't know that. I didn't do that. It would appear that, much like adverts, if you don't do your own merchandise, somebody else will. And you can bet your bottom dollar it won't be small print runs of fun things made in a local studio employing real people who use the money to pay their rent. And I don't want you lovely folks to get ripped off. So, I am in the final steps of getting my merch to market. It will be in small runs because it's handmade. I'll be releasing in batches of 10 as Bethan and their team have the time to do it. If you'd like to order something, keep an eye out on Instagram, Facebook and Blue Sky, as well as on my website, as those are the places where I will be announcing batch releases. If you miss a batch release, don't panic. We'll be doing more, but as this is handmade, it will be a slow release, and I kind of like that. I will also be releasing some limited one-off items of leatherwork by Mr. Grumpy Old Crone and hopefully some other beautiful things that I think people might be interested in. Everything will be handmade by me, my family or my chosen family. I'm just putting the final touches to everything this weekend and next week, but my plans for shooting autumnal fashion shots in the park have been somewhat stymied by Storm Claudia, which has A, ripped all the lovely golden leaves off of the trees, B, made it rain like a bastard for ages, and C, caused a leak in our house, leading to part of Mr. Grumpy Old Crone's study roof falling in. Joy! But onwards and upwards. So, I'm going to leave you with a blessing for this week, which may somewhat reflect the challenging week that I have had. May the storms of destiny not drive unprecedented amounts of rain into the window frame of your life, where it fails to drain away, leading to a wet ceiling that collapses into the room below. And if it does, may you not be standing underneath it. And if all else fails, may you have a lovely, if somewhat sarcastic builder called Michael, who will come out and touch knowledgeably at it and make you feel a bit better, even though your ceiling just fell off. Blessed be!